Hi. In this video, I'm going to talk about what it means to frame an argument. When we make arguments, we defend the same thesis in different ways rhetorically. We bring variety to our rhetorical purpose in order to better, in Cicero's phrase, inform, persuade, and delight our audience. Students often resist the notion of variety because they feel that facts should speak for themselves. So we should argue our claims more directly. There is more to making good arguments, though. Let me suggest an analogy. Basil Liddell Hart, a British military historian, has written extensively on the failure of the direct approach. Charging against fortified positions in battle results in defeat and widespread death, as we discovered during the American Civil War and World War I. The beauty of Napoleon's successes, on the other hand, was his flanking maneuvers that caught his opponents off guard. Similarly, while we would anchor our arguments on the facts of the matter, it turns out that people are so protective of their understanding of the world, their fortified positions, that they will go to extreme lengths to ignore information that contradicts it. Consequently, we want to include more indirect arguments in our papers as well, such as arguing through analogy, as I have done just now. That is what I mean when I talk about framing arguments. Let me explore this notion a little more. We frame a picture to separate it from whatever else is on the wall. It helps us focus on that painting. Similarly, when we employ contrast in an argument, we are engaged with a part of the argument, one which nevertheless defends our central claim, our thesis. Take a look at what historian Diane Ravitch does with two high-profile education reforms. One a proposal, the other became law. Whereas the authors of A Nation at Risk concerned themselves with the quality and breadth of the curriculum that every youngster should study, No Child Left Behind concerned itself only with basic skills. A Nation at Risk was animated by a vision of good education as the foundation of a better life for individuals and for our democratic society. But No Child Left Behind had no vision other than improving test scores in reading and math. It produced mountains of data, not educated citizens. Its advocates then treated that data as evidence of its success. It ignored the importance of knowledge. It promoted a cramped, mechanistic, profoundly anti-intellectual definition of education. In the age of NCLB, knowledge was irrelevant. Ravitch concentrates not on showing likenesses between two visions of American schooling, only the differences. She wants to emphasize the differences to defend her claim that the current education regime for the first decade of the new millennium, No Child Left Behind, was deeply flawed. We can also frame an argument by focusing on the consequences that will result from antecedent events or decisions. Michael Pollan, a widely read writer about food and how it's grown and made, explains the lack of skepticism in the Western food culture being a consequence of the industrial focus of what he calls nutritionism, the view that food is simply packaged nutrients. The traditional diets that the new Western foods displaced were strikingly diverse. Various populations thrived on diets that were what we'd call high-fat, low-fat, or high-carb, all meat or all plant. Indeed, there have been traditional diets based on just about any kind of whole food you can imagine. What this suggests is that the human animal is well adapted to a great many different diets. The Western diet, however, is not one of them. Here, then, is a simple but crucial fact about diet and health. Yet, curiously, it is a fact that nutritionism cannot see, probably because it developed in tandem with the industrialization of our food, and so takes it for granted. Nutritionism prefers to tinker with the Western diet, adjusting the various nutrients, lowering the fat, boosting the protein, and fortifying processed foods rather than questioning their value in the first place. Nutritionism is, in a sense, the official ideology of the Western diet, and so cannot be expected to raise radical or searching questions about it. Pollan's point isn't in these paragraphs that nutritionism is bad. That happens later in the book. His point is that practicing nutritionists are so involved with the mandates of their training that food is packaged nutrients that they simply don't ask whether their tinkering is the right thing for people's health. It's a consequence, not an effect with a cause, because a strict causal chain is missing. Either Pollan doesn't think one absolutely leads to the other, or he just doesn't want to spend the time arguing such a strict relationship. In all three of the frames I've covered, not only does the writer look at the issue at hand from a different perspective, but each frame provides structure for the argument, much as a frame provides structure for a house. Analogies structure involves correspondences between two sets of characteristics, the subject and its analogy. Contrast pits one entity against another. Consequences requires a discussion of why certain things will follow an event or state of affairs when strict causality isn't evident. Other frequently used frames do the same. Anecdotes have a chronological structure, beginning, middle, and end. Contraries contrast two opposing possibilities, only one of which can be true. Reductio ad absurdum frames enact the name. They reduce to absurdity a proposition in an effort to refute it. Anything else is irrelevant to the argument and left out. That relieves you of the burden of providing structure yourself. The frames you use are united in one essay to defend a single thesis. Think of them as charms on a bracelet or a ring of keys to different rooms in the house. Argument frames, what the ancients called commonplaces or topics, remain a simple and powerful way to invent or come upon argument structures that can be applied in a wide variety of controversies. Ignore them at your peril. Your risk assuming that facts are enough. A lot of psychologists would get a chuckle over that. That's it for this edition. If you found this video informative, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel below. You can find workbooks to practice your writing skills at Amazon and my blog through the links that follow. Thanks for listening.